All right, this is video for making a cell phone case, an inventor. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go up to new. We're not going to hit part. We're going to go new because we're going to have to do this in metric. So go, by default, it looks like that. Go here, we say metric, we say standard. And then we are going to go over different share. Out. May have shared properly, but there's no visual indication. So I'm going to switch over to this share. There we are. And there's a link to a PDF. And here it is. It has got all of the information for making any of your cell phone cases. This is, in fact, let's go back up to the top, accessory design guidelines for Apple devices. As in, if you want to make a case, here's what Apple gives to help you make that case. Now, if you go to the table of contents, there are listed all of the Apple devices, all of the devices. I've got 8. Yeah, I'll make a phone for 8. Click there. You can right click on it and rotate it. Sometimes it does that. It's off a couple of pages. That's X. Go. All right. And if you and change when it's in Kudo from what I'm used to, you can zoom in. Oh, darn it. And you're probably not going to want to use that because it's huge. You can scroll up, scroll down. Here is the size. Here is the professional orthographic drawing of your phone. Everything that's in there that you need to know is there. You can make a very precise cell phone case from this. We're going to make a less precise case, but you do need to make sure you're paying attention to the values that are here. Like, let's say this here as the glass area, which is labeled on this particular one, but is not always labeled as glass. You got to pay attention that that's going to the edge there of the glass, not to the edge of the phone. The one up here at the top, that one's the one that's the total width. There's active area and glass area and then total area. You're going to want the total area. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to refer to this, but I might not be switching my screens all the time. That makes a video go weird. I'm not editing this video to cut out my transitions. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to start a sketch on the XY plane. This is always what we do. I'm going to make a rectangle in millimeters. This rectangle is going to be the size of the phone. So if you were just staring at it and you noticed it was 67.27 by the other dimension was 138.44. Recording. Okay, back to recording. Let's hit zoom all. And between those. And there we go. There is a picture of the cell phone. Now, or at least the height. Now, if you made your cell phone case this size, you would find a problem. The problem would be, of course, that you can't fit your cell phone in it because your case has to be bigger than your phone or the phone doesn't go inside. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go here and I'm just going to hit +5. Now, if you like to live dangerously, you can do +4 or +4.5. But +5 gives a little bit of leeway. And if it's too loose, you can adjust things to bring that in. It's going to be from both the height and the width. Also, by doing +5, if you go back when you're done and you can see that you have in fact done this step, which is frequently forgotten. So if it doesn't fit, you know where to look. So if you +5, you know you've added 5 for the thickness of the and then we're going to fill up the edges. This is where a lot of the strength comes from, so don't skip this step. Also makes it look ugly if you got a square edge. For most Apple devices, it's 9.5. You can go look it up on the drawing if you wish, but it's about 9.5. I think this one is actually at 9.1, but I'm going to do 9.5 because that's pretty much what I always do. I'm going to fill these edges. Just going to click both the lines. And there is the back of the case. Woo! Well, almost. I need to extrude it. And 10 millimeters would be a really thick case. That'd be weird. I'm going to go 2 millimeters. You might say, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it totally works. So, 2 millimeters. That's the back of the case. I'm going to start drawing on the front here. And I'm going to use project geometry I've used before. I'm going to offset it in. And I'm going to offset it in by 2 millimeters because that is the thickness of our case. And again, you might say, but I want a thicker case. Okay. Figure out the dimensions then. So you can modify these. Just make sure if you go off book that you recalculate the numbers. Fine. All right, now I got to extrude these walls. And you say, how big do I extrude these walls? Is it 10? Is it 9? Is it 5? That depends on what it says. Drawing, because the walls of your cell phone should be the height of your cell phone. So you go over and you look for product thickness, which is generally where it will be listed. But not all of them listed as product thickness, so you can also just look at the side views of the various phones and find one that has the thickness of your phone. And there you go. Now, if I left it here, it would totally look like a cell phone case, but here's the problem. If you turned your phone upside down, it would completely fall out because there's nothing to hold on to your phone. What I am going to do is I am going to start a sketch. Now, I'm going to do project geometry. And I'm going to, instead of clicking in the center here, which isn't going to work well, or clicking in here, I'm going to click on each individual line on the outside. I want these to go between the outside and hover over the inside. You need to have a lip on here so your phone stays on. Now offset it again. If I just clicked on the inside, I could end up with a line from the inside to further in the inside, which would just fall off. It would snap off immediately. Or if I did both, it would be hanging outside the phone and holding your phone in. So line along the outside. I'm going to bring it in by 3, 2 for the thickness of the wall, and an extra millimeter hanging over the edge. And that will be enough to do this by 1 millimeter. You might say, but I want a thicker one to protect my screen. Well, I'll tell you, you're never going to end up hitting it straight on the screen. Always going to hit it one of the corners. At 1 millimeter will be thick enough. It'll be fine. All right. So we are still missing some things. We're missing some buttonholes. So which is beeping at me for Terminex appointment. Go away. Yeah, the entire bottom, I'm just going to start sketching. When you cut holes for buttons, do not cut into the curves. They are where most of the strength goes. In fact, if you wanted to, you could even go and I constrained it. I could let's say, a little bit and leave a little bit of the straightaway if I wanted to. You want to leave the curves. That's where the strength is. It redirects the force out that way and out that way. Leave the curves there. They're most likely to be broken because it's most likely to land on one of the corners. But the bottom has a charger and I'm going to pause while they're blowing things outside. I think the leaf blower has left the door. Okay, so that's bottom. It's for the speakers, the charging plug. Most phones have that. And you've got one for the buttons. You say, how do I figure that out? Well, you know, you can look at the dimensions of where the buttons are on the screen. Here, let me actually switch this over here so you can see here. So, oh, incidentally, if you hold down Control and use the scroll wheel, it zooms. So here it is. There's the information on where the buttons are. And you can go from the top to the edge here, this being the inside edge, and make sure you have that plus that. But I will tell you a secret. It's not so secret. If you have a hole which is larger than what you need it to be, it's fine. So I'm going to go in just a little bit. And I'm going to make sure this hole is a little bit larger than it needs to be. I looked at the dimensions that are on there, and I don't start it from there, I start it from here, a little bit in, gives us a little bit of the edge there. Have it. The one that does require us to be a little bit more careful is the one with the power button, because it's kind of halfway down. And we need to know where it is. So let's go. Not that one. Come on, there we go. So from the top of the phone to the middle of the power button, it's this value. And in each direction, it needs to be this value, which I'm going to make larger because we want to have enough room for our thumb, not just the button. And we want to make sure if things jiggle, that it doesn't accidentally turn off the phone, because that would be bad, or at least annoying. wouldn't necessarily be bad. So I'm going to go out in each direction by 6, not 5. I'm going to try to be at 34.6 from the top of the phone to the power button. And I'm going to make a rectangle. If it peeks over the edge, it's not the end of the world. And I want from the center of that center point rectangle to the inside edge of the case, not the lip of top of the phone, to the inside of the phone. I'm going to want that to be that listed dimension, 34.6. I want this to be a bit larger. Now, can you make it even bigger? Yeah, totally. It'll make up for if you make a mistake on this dimension, if you make this bigger. Because nothing bad will happen if you make it, even if you make it like, that won't hurt anything. It'll just be bigger than you need. It's not, the plastic here doesn't provide support. This is what I have on my phone, so I'm going to do this. So it matches with the example, but yeah, you can go bigger. And you're going to go through and you're going to cut it. Select all 3, zoom in. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. That's cut. And they don't just go through the lip, they go through the whole thing. So point 8 point something. I guess that's all right. There we go. I just looked a little off. All right. And there is most of the cell phone case. Need one more important thing. We need a. I said I wasn't going to be flipping between these, but I'm totally flipping between these. I really do need to show this off. The instructions for how to place a hole for your cell phone is here. Oh, I must have a different one. This is not the phone that I have. All right, well, close. There's some instructions over here. There's some instructions over here. You can follow it exactly, or just make it big enough. Oftentimes, when you draw this, this is my last one. All right, well, whatever. Slightly different than what I had. When people draw this, they oftentimes use a slapped tool. It looks like what they have a lot on their existing cell phone cases. There we go. I clicked on the right thing. We want to make sure we're not cutting into the size of it, and we want to make sure it's where the phone is. So do make sure you put some dimension on and check them against the size listed in the instructions, but make sure they're bigger. If they're too small, all of your photos are going to end up a picture of the color of your cell phone case. But if it's too big, oh well, nothing bad. And we go through and cut it all the way through. There we go. It's probably too sticky. I will leave it to you to double check the size. Now, you are required to have a design. One thing that is different on this one than the light switch plate is if you're having a design on the back, which is generally where people have it, you're going to have it as a cut because this is the print surface. And if you have stuff extruding out, it will either print the one little drawing and then print the rest of the cell phone case on top of that. Since it's printing with liquid plastic, that's going to end up with a big stringy mess. Or I print it with supports and you end up with a million tiny pieces of plastic and it messes up your design anyways, because you have to scrape it all off and it leaves evidence that the supports were there. So don't do it. You don't have to cut all the way through. You could, if you wanted to, have a design. Let me just here. Simple design. Sometimes people do this one, some people do stripes. You can have this go. You can have it go all the way through, showing your phone through the extrusion, or you can have it go halfway. And if you have it go halfway through, try not to have huge ones, so like these would work better than these ones. If they're too large, then they get stringy. And I could print them with supports, but then again, that oftentimes makes it so that it is it defeats the purpose. So smaller is better than larger if you're going halfway through, but you can totally go halfway through, or you could do halfway through and then you could say start a sketch here on the inside and then put another polygon inside these larger ones. And then extrude them out to be flush with the rest, and they would end up as support beams, and it would print just fine. But when you look from the side, it's still just one solid plane, which works too. People have asked, can you go outside the plane and just have your design hanging off the edge here? Yeah, but then it'll snag when you put it in your pocket. So you may, but I don't know why you would. People have asked, can you start a sketch here and say, put name, and yeah, you can, and it can even be extruded out if you want. Don't extrude too far or else it'll get all stringy, but yeah, you can do that if you want. I would refrain from doing it on this side because then it'll get snagged in your pocket again, but yeah, you can. People ask, can you have it in 2 colors? And the answer is generally no, but yes, if you want a much more difficult assignment. You can make a separate part, which will be printed in a separate color, and you can set up this part so that it nests inside this part. I have some examples off to the side if you wish to look at what that looks like. It's significantly more difficult. I usually only get a couple of people a year trying it, and only about half those try it succeed because correctly judging how smaller to make the nested ones. My example one has some of those, as well as I have previous years my cell phone cases, which have that. Can you have it whatever you want? Yes. Some people have asked. I'm just going to delete this one. Oh, and this one. Some people have asked, how do you do yours? Here's what I did for mine. Country. Sketch. Let me also delete the camera hole because mine doesn't have a camera hole because I did it differently. If we do mine, I did project geometry and I offset it in. I don't know, like 5. I think I did 10. 5 looks about right. I made sure basically the edge of where the camera needed to be. That's how far I extruded it. And then I did that as a cut. 2 millimeters. And then I started a sketch there, and then I just basically did a bunch of arcs. I tried to make sure when I was doing my various squid arcs, I also traced the drawing. It's not like traced drawing for part of it. Some of them were hand drawn, some of them were traced. But I did try to make sure I had the squid arms overlap. Dropped a bunch of circles on them. I made sure that the squid arms overlapped. Oh, those don't look like they. Let's go spend or go spend. Now, there we go. Now they touch. Trim these off here. Trim. I want to make sure that they end up touching, so that it does give some lateral support. It's not just tentacles kind of hanging out in the middle. They do. I do have several that go, and they usually go from the side to at least one other tentacle, which lends support. So if you open it up in the back, make sure you have, lots of things. These ones here. Also do a bit of rectangle. Same idea. There we go. And then I trimmed out overlapping things, which I didn't have to, but I wanted to because it makes better. This should be hanging out over the edge. But, oh well. And then I hit extrude, and I changed the direction. I kept it as an extrude. And there we go. There's something that looks kind of like mine, but done by hand and quickly. So make sure you have a design. Make sure you've added the 5 in the width and depth. Make sure you have checked your measurements, or else your stuff won't fit. You've got about a 0.5 millimeter leeway. If it doesn't fit, figure out what dimensions aren't working and adjust, and then resubmit. Do not forget, in the private comments, you need to tell me what color you want to print it in. There's the keychain of different colors if you wish to look at them. Make sure you don't just say blue, true blue, silk blue, teal, translucent blue, whatever color you want. Make sure you give me a specific color. And then move on to the orthographic version of this. All right, that is it.